Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a sports betting perspective. With pro handicappers Alex B. Smith and veteran sports writer Jimmy Murphy. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Tuesday, February the 8th, it's Ian Cameron, Andrew McInnis with you as we're ready for a Tuesday NHL card. We were hoping for the return of Alex B. Smith. Hopefully he shows up. We'll see, but he's feeling a little under the weather. He said he'd try to make it on with us, so we'll hopefully get Alex on at some point during the show. But we're ready for a Tuesday night in the NHL. Looking forward to breaking down these games from a betting perspective, and a much bigger card. Obviously, we had two games last night, kind of like an appetizer, although one game was, definitely playoff caliber. And that Carolina-Toronto game, I'll say it right now, it was a terrific hockey game. Both teams, it could have gone either way. The Leafs end up finding a way in overtime, a 2-goal game for Mitch Marner. We all liked his shots on goal prop to the over once again. The goal scorer prop that I also took with it, Marner cashed at plus 250 with that for tying goal he scored. And then, of course, he got the game winner in overtime. A nice win for the Leafs where, look, they took a punch and they punched back. And at playoff time, that's the question we're going to ask ourselves about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Are they going to be capable of taking a punch and punching back? Or are they going to take a punch and just curl up into the fetal position, which they've done multiple years past in the playoffs? So, but that's a good sign, responding to adversity. That's something this franchise has not done for 55 years. So let's see if that's a sign of things to come for them at playoff time last night with that overtime win. Because look, they got behind. They took the lead late in the second. And then Carolina ties it and goes up 3-2. And you think, uh-oh, here we go with Toronto again. But the Leafs found a way, persevered, tied it up, and then won it in overtime. Great hockey game. If you're Carolina, though, you're a little pissed about the officiating in that game. You have a right to be a little bit. Seemed like there was not a lot of – and look, this is not the first time Brendan Moore's been upset with the referees. He has been – there's playoff games last year, 2 years ago, where he felt, hey, we didn't barely got 1 or 2 power plays in the game, and he would let – the officials know about it on the ice and then in the post-game press conference. And you certainly saw that last night. Was not very happy with some of the non-calls that ended up going against his team last night. But nevertheless, we'll give the Leafs credit for a good win. And in the other game, Ottawa taking care of business against New Jersey. This poor Devils team actually played pretty decently in the game last night. They carried the play for parts of that game, but problem is they didn't find the back of the net, and their own goaltending, again, it's tough. When you got to trot out Akira Schmieds of the world and Nico Dawes and John Gillies every night, you're going to have a very difficult time winning. And these guys have just not stepped up to the plate and given you NHL caliber goaltending at this point in time. Ottawa taking advantage with a 4-1 win. Andrew, just some thoughts from you on the two games from last night.
Yeah, well, I think that, I think that as much as I give shit to the Maple Leafs, I got to just put my pride aside and give them respect for that comeback. Marner's playing really well. That streak, hats off to you. I saw you tweet out Marner's goal prop. I'm not going to sit here and be mad about a win that I had with his shots prop by any means, but plus 250 with the goal scorer. Great stuff by you there. Splitsville with me with the games. I had Carolina, but I had a good play on the Ottawa Senators, which was my best bet here on the Ice Guys, and had some props yesterday. But other than that, look, I'll say this. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I really don't like 3-on-3 overtime as a bettor. I love 3-on-3 overtime as a fan of hockey, but we all know that 3-on-3 hockey is not hockey. That's not the same. And look, I said, I gave them respect. I'll give them dap again. The Leafs pulled it together. They came back. They got it done in OT. But the problem is that there's no such thing as 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs. And if you look at what happened last year in the playoffs, the Maple Leafs in the overtime, when it wasn't 3-on-3, it was a bit different of a ball game. So if you would have given me, the option to have Carolina Maple Leafs just play another 5-on-5, I would have been feeling pretty good about my wager. The second that goes to 3-on-3, the Leafs are talented. They're great with 3-on-3 overtime. they handle it pretty well. And, certain teams just have a better edge with that. Ted talking about stronger goalie. Absolutely. But it's also about possession, players that have a little more style and flash to their game and different things like that. But for the most part, I thought it was a great comeback. I think that you look at the fact the referees put the whistle away for both teams at the end of the game. I feel like that's something that has to be touched on in the NHL world as well. It's a similar thing to basketball. I think that you don't want calls to decide a game, but you also can't have, a call that you make in the first minute of the game be different than a call you don't make in the last minute of a game. And I think most people would probably agree with that. But other than that, look, I mean, they got it done. Great game there. The Devils, as far as that game goes, they're back in action again tonight. Ian touched on their goaltending issue. No Jack Hughes. I talked about it yesterday, guys, about how much different this team is without a couple key guys. And it's true. The Senators made it look like light work after they went down 1-0. It was all Senators after that. So big game there from the Ottawa Senators. We'll see what happened. Both those teams playing back-to-backs, though, and playing again tonight. But my quick thoughts there, Ian. What are your thoughts? 3-on-3 overtime. As a bettor, I hate it. As a fan of the game, couldn't love it anymore.
Yeah, it's great for regular season. I'm glad it's just regular season. I love it. It's just amazing to see it's kind of like the All-Star game, but at least you can hit still with 3-on-3 overtime. But it's basically an odd man rush and a breakaway in, I would say, probably more than 50% of the shifts in a 5-on-5 or a 3-on-3 5-minute overtime period. I wouldn't want to see that in a playoff overtime game. I'd want to see, your standard, at least 4-on-4, 5-on-5 like it is. 3-on-3 wouldn't be as good. I wouldn't want your playoff games decided that way. But you want a winner in more of these regular season games than say getting a winner with 3-on-3 overtime. That's why they'd have 3-on-3 overtime, because you got a better chance for the game to end in overtime within the 5-minute period. They don't want as many games decided by a shootout, and who can blame them? Because I think that's even worse than having the game decided by 3-on-3 overtime, is having a winner decided by who wins the shootout. So I like it. It's certainly entertaining. There's never a dull moment. Often these 3-on-3 overtime periods are action-packed. And certainly we saw one last night with Carolina and Toronto. I'm just glad that it's
kind of a bad way to end the game, though, Ian. Like, I mean, again, I'm so biased now, and I kind of hate that a little bit, because I look at hockey as a betting source.
Right.
I love the game, but I look at it as a betting standpoint always. Don't you agree, though? Like, everybody said how great of a game that was yesterday. Playoff atmosphere, playoff feel.
Yep.
And it has to end like we're playing out, pond hockey out there. Why does the game have to end like that? Timing and fatigue or whatever. Players have to travel. But to me, it just kind of sucks. And like, all my friends rip on me for saying, like, how could you not like 3-on-3? But it's not hockey anymore. It, to me, it's almost like in the NBA, why don't they do 3-on-3 half court? Why not? Let's change the whole game. Like, that's my little rant for today. I just think it's not hockey anymore.
Yeah, it's hockey. It's exciting hockey. I like it in the regulars. That's where I stand. Like, I actually really like it in the regular season. At 5 minutes, get a winner, avoid the shootout more often than not, because I think if you go 4-on-4, 5-on-5 in overtime, you're going to see a lot more shootouts, and that's worse.
For sure. But how did the Leafs do in the playoffs last year overtime?
Yeah.
Not very well.
No.
And that if it was 3-on-3,
because it wasn't 3-on-3. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was 3-on-3, I would have taken the Leafs over the Habs in every one of those overtime games. I'll be honest. 5-on-5, a little bit different.
Like, I don't know how people in the chat feel as that are watching our show right now on YouTube, or any of you that have downloaded the podcast and are listening to the show right now. I don't know how you feel, but I will ask you: what would you rather see the game decided in terms of beyond regulation? Would you rather see it decided in a 3-on-3 5-minute overtime period, or a shootout? I know which one I'd take 10 times out of 10. 3-on-3.
And I'm agreeing with that. I'm right there with you. Like Jeffrey is saying, Andrew, the game is more entertaining with the 3-on-3. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm strictly talking about from a betting standpoint that I'd rather lose if it was 5-on-5, because I'm not handicapping it like, all right, well, if it's 3-on-3 out there, what do I, my handicap has, I'm not thinking about if it's going to be 6 players on the ice. That's the only thing that sucks. But great game last night. And it's kind of funny, Ian. It pretty much went as expected. Everybody was talking about yesterday. I opened the show with you and I said, well, we got one game pretty good and one game not very good. And what happened? The good game went to overtime and the not so good game was a blowout.
Yeah, it was just a, mundane Monday night NHL hockey game. That's what New Jersey and Ottawa was. And obviously Carolina, Toronto was good. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like soccer's not one of my favorite sports, obviously. And I've said that over the years, but I'm not a draw guy or a end in ties guy. Find a winner. I always say that. Find a winner some way. Like that's the good thing about baseball. We'll find a winner. Football, that bothers me too, actually, that it can end in a tie in the NFL after 10 minutes of overtime. You've already played that long. Find a way to get a winner there. I don't like that the NFL has a way of still having ties in their league. But I like that basketball, we get no ties, baseball, and of course hockey, no draws, no ties. Save that for soccer where they play for a tie with 5 minutes to go and they just pass the ball around. It drives me absolutely insane.
Hey, but they do that in the playoffs in the NHL. Yep. That's why we hit so many draw wagers in the NHL in the playoffs, because they do play for ties. Which
makes no sense because there's no tie. That's not a point system in the playoffs. You still got to win the game. It makes no sense to play for overtime in the playoffs. In the regular season, you will see that actually. That soccer mentality where we both want a point out of this game. Late in by the way, and I know Alex will be a proponent of this because he definitely is someone that will look for draws and bet a lot of draws in NHL games. We're going to be looking for some of these in the last, I would say, 2, 3, 4 weeks of the regular season for two teams that are in playoff races where you expect the game to be pretty close, pretty competitive, because you're going to see, and especially in the games, Andrew, where it's out of conference teams, an East team versus a West team, both teams battling for points, both teams battling for playoff position. If it's 2-2 with 3 minutes to go in the third period, we're not taking any chances. We're not taking any risks. Do you know why? Because I don't give two shits about whether that guy gets points out of this game or not, because he's in the other conference. He's not part of my playoff race, that team. So I don't mind them getting a point out of it. You may see it a little differently. Let's say if it's division rivals or conference rivals where two teams are battling for the playoffs, final few weeks of the regular season. Both teams might be a little more aggressive trying to win the game in regulation. But certainly when we're talking, Andrew, just conceptually, this makes a lot of sense to me. If it's an Eastern Conference team against a Western Conference team, even though both teams need the points and are battling for playoff positioning, a tie game late, bet a live draw, maybe bet the draw pre-game if you think it's going to be a close game. Because if it's close late, like I say, Eastern Conference team in that game, he's not going to care that the Western Conference opponent's going to go get a point from this game if it goes to overtime, and vice versa. I think that's something really, it's important to keep that in mind when we get into that final few weeks of the regular season.
It's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point. Also, I know we got to get into the games, but I wanted to mention, talk about soccer. They had the Afghan finals championship on Sunday, Ian. And I don't know if you followed any of that stuff that much, but I follow it. I enjoy soccer. And the championship game had the draw at around plus 175 or maybe a little bit lower. In a regular game, that would have been in the plus 200s. But because it was the championship game, the odds were lower because it was implied, they were going to maybe push it to PKs, right? So to your point, be careful with these odds, try and find the best ones you can, but also try and understand, later in the season, like you said, there's going to be games where the draw might not be as big of a price because of those reasons, like you just listed, because it might be more implied with this team needs a point. They don't need 2 points. They need a point, so that's one of the reasons why we see more overtimes.
Yeah, will we see adjustment in the draw prices? Very, very interesting question. Based on the scenario and the situation of the game going into it, going to be interesting to monitor that when we get later in the season, no question. All right, let's go to Tuesday's card. We got 7 games. Let's start with Not one of the more glamorous matchups, two teams playing for exercise, but it's on the board, and I actually do have an opinion on it. New Jersey Devils and Montreal Canadiens. We've got New Jersey minus 110, minus 115, slight road favorites, 6.5 the total here in this one. Of course, the Devils on a back-to-back, but take the back-to-backs with a grain of salt, right, when you're in this kind of spot, because we're coming off the All-Star break. Back-to-back shouldn't be that big of a problem for New Jersey. I think their bigger problem is can they get a save from somebody in net? Can they keep the puck out of their own net? That's the problem. It's got nothing to do with the back-to-back spot. I'm not worried about that if I'm New Jersey. And if you're worried about that in terms of betting New Jersey tonight, I wouldn't be. What I am worried about is this team's just not playing very good hockey right now. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about their defense. I'm worried about their goaltending. This certainly lacked a little offensive punch, at least last night, without Jack Hughes. Although Ottawa defensively and Matt Murray were pretty solid in net. They still generated, had some shots, some quality looks, but just couldn't finish around the net. I think they're going to finish a little bit more tonight. We know Montreal's been just a brutal defensive team. You talk about defensive and goaltending issues on New Jersey. It's been every bit as problematic for the Montreal Canadiens. There's no question about that. They've confirmed Caden Primo will be in net, and really it hasn't mattered because he and Montembeault have struggled, but they've also been largely the struggles have been a product of poor play in front of them. They've been absolutely terrible defending in front of their goaltending this year, the Montreal Canadiens. And I think New Jersey, the onus is definitely maybe to get their offense revved up tonight, be aggressive, take advantage of this depleted, struggling Montreal defense. I think you'll see that tonight. But on the flip side, I think Montreal, first game after the break, it's obviously been everything that can go wrong has gone wrong type of season for the Montreal Canadiens. There's no doubt. And it's amazing that even after the All-Star break, they're still with no Drouin, no Dvorak, no Edmondson. I mean, they're starting to get some guys back. It's nice to see, they're going to have obviously Toffoli. They're going to have Hoffman, Anderson, Caulfield. At least they're getting some guys back. Petrie's come back on the blue line. It's starting to get a little healthier, and yet there's still a bunch of key players out, including their top two goalies. We're not going to see Price, obviously, at all, but Jake Allen's not going to be back until later on in March. So it's Caden Primo and Samuel Montembeault for the foreseeable future here. I like the game over the total. There's nothing really more to say. I know last night with the New Jersey-Ottawa game, it stayed under, but Montreal's an over machine. I think I took every Montreal game going into the All-Star break over the total. I'm going to do the same here. I think New Jersey will goals both ways. That's the way I see it here tonight for New Jersey and for Montreal. So I like this game over the total. Weak defenses, weak goaltending on both sides in this game. So I like the game over the total. A few props I like too. I'm going back to the well. Jesper Bratt over shots, maybe to score a goal as well tonight in this game. Once again, this opened around minus 120, and people are just, betting this thing up once again today. It's up to minus 155 right now at DraftKings, but I still think Jesper Bratt gets to 3 shots on goal. We saw it last night. He sailed over that shots on goal number. And I think if you take each of the 3 players playing on Montreal's top line tonight, which is scheduled to be Arturi Lehkonen, Tyler Toffoli on that top line, as well as Nick Suzuki centering that top line. I think if you take over shots for all 3 guys, I think you go 2-1 or 3-0. I really believe that. They're shooting more, all 3 guys. Look at their shots on goal numbers lately. Toffoli, Suzuki, Lehkonen even, who's found the back of the net recently. He's shooting. He's had some 4 shots on goal games recently for Montreal. I think if you bet shots on goal over for those 3 guys on that Montreal top line, Lehkonen, Suzuki, Toffoli, 2-1 or 3-0, in my opinion. I think that you'll have that kind of result. Andrew, what do you think here? Devils, Canadiens.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wish I played more Canadiens overs, and I played a lot. I had a top play before the break on one of them over the total, and they just kept hitting. That Edmonton game over the total. So many games over the total with the Canadiens, in large part to their defense, but they started scoring some more themselves. Look, I said yesterday the Devils are a fade right now, and I'm going to say it again. Last time I was on this show and I bet the Habs, full transparency, didn't go very well. But I'm doing it again here, Ian. It hasn't been that many times this season I've done it, and you know that. At minus 105, I think it's an appropriate time to jump in. And Jimmy retweeted a video from a Habs journalist. I'm not sure if you saw it, Ian, but it was a really intense morning skate drill that I've never really seen. And Jimmy called it one of the most intense morning skates he's seen, in his time. And the quote from Brendan Gallagher, I saw the interview with him earlier today, and just, I don't know, like, I just get the feeling that, and I think I know this team pretty well. And, getting Paul Byron back, who might not be a superstar, but he's someone that brings energy to the team, and he brings a veteran type mindset to the team. Getting some guys back and healthier, and getting a little bit of more consistency in that lineup will be huge for them. And getting the Devils in the second half of back-to-back, you could make the argument that it's good that they've already played a game, but I think the Habs are motivated and ready to rock, and this is the type of team that they have to beat, because they're not going to beat your top teams in the league by any means, no upset whatsoever. But I think that they can beat the Devils tonight, and I think it's an appropriate time to do so with them. That shots on goal prop that you mentioned, I ended up giving it out, and I think that I bet it at minus 160, and that's high but that's the funny thing. Sometimes DraftKings will keep things at 2.5 but high juice, and sometimes they'll move it to 3.5 at plus money. But last night I didn't even mind that minus 160. So what did you say it was tonight? Right now?
It's minus 155 right now at DraftKings. So it's actually slightly cheaper than it was last night. And it's just, and he's going to obviously get looks. And Hischier is always someone that passes more than shoots. And so he should be getting opportunities playing on that right wing side of that top line for New Jersey, along with Nico Hischier. So, and again, he's been not hesitant to fire pucks on net. And we certainly saw that last night. He's had a bunch of 3-4 shot games lately for the Devils. So,
and if you want to mention it too, if we're going in order, I do remember my guy Jimmy. He's on reverse puck line with the Canadiens tonight, so I had to give that out on Jimmy's behalf. He gave us his picks in the DMs.
Oh, that's right, he did. I should mention that. And Alex gave us his best bet. I don't think Alex will be joining us, but he did give us his best bet. But I'll mention that with the and it's just his one bet. But yes, there you go. Habs reverse puck line. Yep, Jimmy puck line minus 1.5 here. I'd take Montreal probably before New Jersey, but I'm not interested in the side here. We'll just hope that both teams contribute offensively.
Hey, you can root me on.
That's right. Exactly right. It's just, it's pick your poison when you're talking about two teams that are struggling mightily. But I would just think both of them can, spread their wings a little bit offensively tonight. And
look, it's not best bet material for me, but it's worth a wager, I think.
That's right. And I think the game you're mentioning, you said it didn't go well. I think that was the Arizona game, right? Is that the one?
Yeah, it is. Right? It is. Yeah, that was an afternoon game too, I believe, right?
Yeah. And boy, it was a tough one. That was actually a very rough game for them. I remember it. They did not play well whatsoever in the desert that day.
I know. I did a show with you, and I was all pumped to go watch the game, and it just had the worst start ever.
They did. They fell behind like 2 or 3-0, or it was just a dreadful start, I remember, for Montreal in this game, and they never recovered. We'll see if they recover from the break and can find their way into the win column tonight in this one. All right, we move on now to Pittsburgh and Boston, one of the better games of the night for sure. We got the Boston Bruins minus 130, home favorites, 5.5, 6 the total, depending on where you look right now in this one. I would lean a little to Pittsburgh here as a plus price, just because, I've got, I think, a lot more upside long term for the Penguins than the Bruins. And look, Pittsburgh's not exactly a team that played their best hockey, going into the All-Star break. They had, I don't know what it was, a swoon. They got a lot of these, mediocre teams and mediocre opponents coming into their building, going into the All-Star break, and they didn't exactly react well to it. And of course, they also lose the big clash against Washington 4-3 in overtime, the final game before the break. So 4-game losing streak here for Pittsburgh. I think you get focus from them, right? Sometimes the All-Star break comes at a bad time for teams, and sometimes it comes at a good time for teams. Maybe a good time for Pittsburgh because they had the little slump there, 4 losses in a row, maybe a chance to hit the reset button just a little bit here as they take on Boston. When you look at the Bruins, still got questions about whether they can consistently beat the best of the best in the National Hockey League as a whole, and also their own conference. I mean, you look at these recent wins for Boston, Seattle, Arizona, Winnipeg when they were really, really struggling, when the Jets were going into Boston and they were starting to incur all those defensive injuries that they've had. for weeks. They did beat Nashville. It was a quality win. Washington, it's a decent win. But again, Washington was struggling at that time. And then Philadelphia for this Boston team. They've also had, it's worth noting, some losses to Anaheim, 5-3. They, of course, lost to Colorado, got beaten down by Dallas, crushed by Carolina, ruined that beautiful ceremony they had for the great Willie O'Ree that night. So really, there's still some big-time question marks here about Boston's ability to step up in class a little. And I know, obviously, the big concern here for Pittsburgh and disappointing thing for them is Evgeny Malkin being placed in COVID protocol going into this game. Certainly will be missed. Certainly the way he was playing for this Pittsburgh team going into the All-Star break. They'll miss his offense and certainly his presence on the power play. It's amazing how much better the Penguin power play immediately became when he returned for the first time this season. So definitely you look at this as a situation where you'll miss Evgeny Malkin. As far as the Bruins go, in this game tonight, still battling a couple injuries too, including Nick Foligno day-to-day. Tuukka Rask remains out as well for the Bruins. So right now you're looking at Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman being the tandem in net for them, and it's Jeremy Swayman getting the call for Boston tonight. And he's actually been, statistically, you line up his numbers with Ullmark's numbers and with Tuukka Rask's numbers, he's got the best numbers of the three goalies, believe it or not. So we'll see how Jeremy Swayman can play tonight in this one. He hasn't been obviously started for the Bruins in a bit of time. He was down in the AHL for a bit, but he'll start tonight. Tristan Jarry will get the nod for the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is pretty much what we expected. Worth noting, Pittsburgh, 3 days plus of rest, 3 days or more rest this year for the Penguins, undefeated, 4-0 in that situation. So they've been very good with the extended time off. And I'm going to give them a bet here. Pittsburgh, plus 110. Andrew, what do you think? Penguins, Bruins.
If you don't mind, Ian, I'm just going to pretty much say that everything you just said, I was going to say. So I'm on the exact same page as you. I love when that happens. We're on the same page. I also forgot to mention it's a chalky price, but I am on the over 1.5 first period in that Canadiens game as well. But I do like Pittsburgh just like you. And love the short dog price for a team that, hey, didn't play their best hockey going into the break, but they're still a great team defensively. I think that makes the biggest difference in this one. The way they protect the neutral zone and the way they shut down top guys on the opposition. So, hey, if the Bruins depth shows up tonight, maybe they get the win. But I think it's one of those games where if it's just, Pasternak and Marshy doing the scoring, the Penguins come out on top. I trust the Penguins' depth a hell of a lot more than I trust the Bruins' depth. Oh,
yeah,
muted.
definitely. We have seen issues at times with the Bruins being able to get offense from the usual suspects: Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak, Charlie Coyle. Glimpses, nothing consistent. Taylor Hall, glimpses, nothing consistent. That continues to be the major concern. And by the way, Alex B. Smith, this is his one bet that he submitted for the card today, the first period over with Boston and Pittsburgh. I mean, recently, definitely Boston has been a good first period over team. New Jersey certainly has been that. And Andrew mentioned like in New Jersey, Montreal over 1.5 in the first period. So definitely makes sense there. But Alex liking Pittsburgh, Boston over 1.5 in the first period in this game. And as for Jimmy Murphy here, let me see. Did he send anything for that? Yeah, he likes the Bruins. He's against us. So we're not all in agreement, at least in terms of the crew. Jimmy liking Boston here in this one at minus 130 tonight. All right, next up on the card, Carolina and Ottawa. We've got Carolina minus 225, minus 230. Road favorites, 6 the total in this one. I don't hate Ottawa plus 1.5. I could like they kept it close against Carolina just recently when these two teams squared off. They're capable of doing that, and it seems like when they play, hot upper echelon teams, sometimes you get Ottawa really giving them a good go. I mean, like Washington, even the Pittsburgh game in Pittsburgh, they lost 6-4, but they had tied that game, believe it or got within one goal of the Penguins that night. It seems like when in Edmonton, they beat them in overtime 3-2. So Ottawa's had that ability to elevate their game a little bit and really give these better teams some issues. Carolina on a back-to-back, but again, I don't mind that. It's off the All-Star break. Should be fresh as a daisy still, relatively speaking, for a second night of a back-to-back. The one concern is, you got Carolina off an overtime loss compared to maybe off a win against Toronto last night. So maybe that means you bring the focus you need here. And I'll be honest with you, part of the reason why Ottawa's won some of these games lately has been the play of Matt Murray, who's been absolutely really rock steady in the net the last few starts he's made for the Senators. Unfortunately, with this being a back-to-back, Murray was in last night against New Jersey. It'll be Anton Forsberg in net tonight for the Ottawa Senators. And he has not been as good, obviously, compared to Matt Murray. A 2.62 goals against, 911 save percentage his last 5 starts, 1-4 in those games. So we'll see how he fares here in this one tonight. It should be Antti Raanta, you would think, for the Carolina Hurricanes in this game with them on the back-to-back. So I would expect the veteran Finnish netminder Raanta to get the starting assignment here tonight for the Carolina Hurricanes. Worth noting, Raanta, in his last start was much better. He's kind of been up and down this year, but his last start was rather good for the Carolina Hurricanes against New Jersey. 1 goal allowed in a 2-1 win over the Devils in that game. So we'll see if he can bring another good start to the table here in this one. So I just have a small lean to Ottawa plus 1.5, but nothing official of yet. Probably one of the games I will end up passing from a betting perspective, at least pregame wise, when it comes to Canes and Senators. Andrew, what do you think here, Carolina, Ottawa?
Yeah, and last night I locked in the over 6 in this one. I like it quite a bit. I know Carolina can be a good defensive team, but Ottawa's got some confidence. I said it yesterday. Look, if you looked at the games they played in before the All-Star break, you would be kind of, shaking your head at me if I said they were playing some decent hockey. But the scoreboard doesn't always dictate what happened and how a team's been playing. And I truthfully believe this team is playing with some type of confidence right now, whether it's inner confidence, whether it's, actually, believing that they can actually, make some moves in this league right now. I'm not so sure, but the coaching staff's done a great job. Somebody is doing something in that locker room that's inspiring this team. And let's not forget the speed and the talent they do have. But I don't like the amount of breakaways they give up. And Carolina's transition game is one of the best in the league. I mean, the way they can get their defensemen to push that puck up the ice is huge for them. So I really think the over 6 is a good spot here. And obviously, both teams playing on back-to-back. So it kind of helps us out there in that angle. So over 6 is a spot that I bet in this one.
All right, over 6 for Andrew here with Carolina and Ottawa. I might give a look to, because of the fact, he had some chances last night, no doubt about that, for the Carolina Hurricanes. Nothing necessarily went in the back of the net for him in that game last night. But when I look at it tonight in this particular matchup, Aho over 2.5 shots, which is at minus 140 at DraftKings, definitely appeals to me. 3 shots in back-to-back games for him. When you look at it last night, no points in the game, but still had some opportunities and some good looks. I mean, I feel bad for you, Andrew. I don't know if you saw this very moment of the Carolina-Toronto game, but I know you were interested in a Seth Jarvis goal scorer prop last night for Carolina. And man, the chance that he had, he was right there. There was an open side, and it's like a golf shank. This is what happened. It just
almost like skipped over his stick. Yeah. On the right side, right?
Yep. He did get that one prime opportunity. That was it. And man, I was thinking, man, Andrew, I hope Andrew didn't see that, but I knew you did. Tough luck. I mean, but that was his chance in that game, no question. So Andrew liking goals with over 6 here, Carolina and Ottawa. All right. Next up, we got Columbus and Washington. We've got the Capitals, huge favorites here, minus 240, minus 245 in this game. The total 6.5. Depending on where you're looking at the moment. Obviously, this is maybe the Capitals trying to hit the reset button a little bit, because outside of a couple of wins against Dallas and Pittsburgh, didn't exactly play great going into the break. Of course, they had no Alex Ovechkin, which we found out during the day of that Oilers-Capitals game. Definitely impacted them. They got off to a dreadful start in that game, down 3-0 early, and they ended up making it interesting. They didn't roll over in that game, but at the end of the day, they ended up with a 5-3 loss to Edmonton going into the break. So we'll see how the Capitals fare. It's been an up and down, turbulent year for them, really a lack of consistency. When you look at them, though, on the extended rest, 4-3 this year, Columbus 3-2 in that spot. The Jackets, they did have a couple of wins there against the Rangers and Montreal, 5-3 and 6-3, winning back-to-back games. Then they got drubbed by Florida, 8-4, their final game before the break, and still just 2-4 in their last 6 games, the Blue Jackets, before the All-Star break. We'll see if they can bounce back here, play a little bit better. But when you look at it from a Capitals perspective, tonight, Alexander Ovechkin will be back. That's the reason why he was not part of All-Star Weekend, because of his COVID-19 positive test. But he is cleared from protocol and will be back tonight for the Capitals. So obviously some great news there. TJ Oshie remains out. Vitek Vanacek, one of their top 2 goalies, still on IR, also out. But very interesting, Peter Laviolette deciding to go with, and there's no back-to-back for Washington. They don't play tomorrow night. This is Phoenix Copley. This is a coach's decision to just say, you know what, Ilya Samsonov, you're off your game right now. You haven't been good you have not been very steady in net for a while now. We're going to give this kid a chance. And Copley came in for a struggling Samsonov, who was just awful at the early part of that Edmonton game, allowing them to get that 3-0 early lead. I mean, he's got to cover the post better on that banked-in shot that chased him from the net in that third goal that Edmonton scored. And Phoenix Copley, I thought, was pretty steady, to be honest, for Washington for the rest of that game. Gave the Capitals a chance to get back into it. And Peter Laviolette's desperate to try to find some more stable goaltending. And I think he's going to give this guy a chance. Now, Copley's been around for a long time. He's been bounced around from a few different teams. Are we ready to trust him here in this game is the biggest question. But definitely Peter Laviolette going with a hunch here that maybe Copley will come out with a pretty good effort here in this game. Under no circumstance whatsoever am I laying -240 with Washington in this game. Not at all with the form they displayed going into the All-Star break. Definitely not a team I'm laying this kind of astronomical price with. Don't know if I'll take Columbus, but I'd take them before Washington in this game. Probably a game I'll lay off when it's all said and done. When you look at the recent series history, this has actually been an under series history. 3 of the last 4 have stayed under. We've seen 3-1, 2-1, and 3-0. In 3 of the last 4 games. They've been tighter checking affairs. They've been lower scoring games. Maybe with Copley in net. And Copley's numbers in the AHL were solid this year. Like I say, in that relief effort against Edmonton, he was pretty solid. So this might be one of those games where they look to really tighten it up. This could stay under. Not betting it, but lean that way for me. Andrew, what do you think here with Columbus and Washington?
Yeah, keeping it simple, I think the Capitals are a team that are about to heat up. They're a buy team for me right now. They haven't had that many winning streaks this year so far, really. I am on. You can find us on DraftKings, -140. Team total over 3.5 for the Capitals here tonight.
All right, there we go. Washington, team total over 3.5 for Andrew. And, it's all going to come down to what we get tonight from Merzlikins, who's had some good starts. He's had some rough ones as well. No question.
I just wanted to take the Blue Jackets out of the picture. You could wonder, the puck line is -105.
Right.
And the team total is -140. People always ask me, like, well, why wouldn't you just take the puck line, right? You'll get better odds. I would rather take worse odds and get a winner than watch a 4-3 game happen and me lose the puck line. So with plays like this, I have no trouble taking a little bit of extra juice and grabbing the puck, grabbing the team total. I'm kind of done with puck lines. The amount of times, Ian, that I've had a puck line and the team total is hit, but they've only won by 1 goal, you wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't believe it. Like, oh, my team won 5-4, but the puck line didn't hit, but they went over their team total. It's a real piss off.
Yeah, no doubt. It is. It can be frustrating, definitely, when it comes to those puck lines, especially when you don't get the empty net goal when you need it. That is a frustrating feeling. There's no question. So the team total is often a route that you go to instead of, say, a money line or in terms of a puck line bet on that team. And we'll talk about that in the next game where I actually have a split bet, money line and team total. And we will get to that game right now. Minnesota taking on Winnipeg here. We've got Minnesota minus 155, road favorites in Winnipeg. 6 the total in this one. I actually have 3 bets because I do have a small bet on the full game over as well. But the main bets for me are a split. Minnesota minus 145, as well as Minnesota team total over 3.5 at a plus price. Plus 115, even plus 120 in some spots. Jets are just too decimated. They really are. I mean, it's just, this team can still be, I think, capable of contending and pushing for a playoff spot when they get everybody back. But that's the problem right now with the Winnipeg Jets. It's just too depleted a group at this point in time. The blue line's just decimated. What are you going to do? I mean, Logan Stanley's out. Now Nathan Beaulieu is out, and he's underrated defensively. He's physical. He's usually very good in his own end, Beaulieu. He's out. Now Neil Pionk as well, who I thought's given them some very steady, solid minutes at the back end for Winnipeg since they got him from the New York Rangers a couple years ago. He's out as well. And then up front, they've obviously been without Nikolai Ehlers for a while, and that's definitely hurt. And now you got to be without Pierre-Luc Dubois now as well, who's landed in COVID-19 protocol for the Jets. So it's just, you're talking about your top line center or one of your top 2 centers out. You're talking about maybe one of your best wingers in Nikolai Ehlers out. You're talking about still cluster injuries and absences on the blue line going into this game tonight. And, you got to face this Minnesota team that's hotter than a proverbial pistol. At least they were.
And they do not struggle to score. That's for sure.
They do not struggle to score. That's for sure going into this game. So it just feels like it's tough to ask Winnipeg to beat the best teams right now, given their depleted roster at the moment. I know Hellebuck's going to start in net, and I'm sure he'll do everything in his power to give his team a chance. But don't sleep on Kaapo Kähkönen either for the Minnesota Wild. Kaapo Kähkönen's been very good of late, 10-2 record overall, 2.53 goals against, 953 or 922, I should say, save percentage. Facing a Jets team that's obviously got key absences up front, 3, possibly 4 starting defensemen out tonight as well. So it's a chance for him to maybe have a good game here. But I think Minnesota probably will find the back of the net and get to 4 goals. I mean, the fact you can get over 3.5 with a plus price tag here on the Minnesota Wild for a team that, we often can trust this team, especially of late, to score 4 goals, in a game. That's been a routine occurrence for the Minnesota Wild. You look at their recent games, they've scored. You go back their last 7 games, 7 against Anaheim. They scored 3 against Colorado, but Colorado on the road tough. 5 against Chicago, 4 against Chicago, 8 against Montreal. They had a game against the Rangers where they were less than 4 with 3, but 4 against the Islanders, which defense is their strength, and they still scored 4 against the Islanders. And then, of course, 5 against Chicago, the final game before the All-Star break. So Minnesota, and Rich, the combo bet, I like that as well. Minnesota to win and over 5.5. You'll get a very good price with that. I think that's a good way to look as well. No question. I've got Minnesota minus 145 and a over team total 3.5 split in this one, and also a smaller bet on the full game over 6 as well with the Wild and the Jets. Andrew, Minnesota, Winnipeg.
I just simply don't think that as much as Winnipeg would want to make this lower scoring style of game, I don't think they can do it. But I think we're going to get a good effort out of them. We talk about all the time. You and I think the same on a lot of these breaks. We mentioned Pittsburgh. Some teams need the break and some teams don't want it. What did Mitch Marner say about the Leafs? He didn't want the break, right? Maybe he was because he wasn't an all-star. I don't know. But I mean, the Winnipeg Jets they needed the break. I mean, Philadelphia beat them. I don't know if you want anybody to lose to Philadelphia. And the Wild are just scoring in bunches. And Winnipeg's been involved in some higher scoring games. There was a time period where they used to be a dead nut under. Hellebuck would lock it down. Same thing with Anaheim. I always talk about this. Anaheim was a dead nut 2-1, 3-2 team. And Winnipeg at one point was that team as well. At 6, I'm comfortable out the break, both these two teams, to play the over. And I think both teams contribute to this, but I do think Minnesota comes out on top. I'm not really comfortable with the minus 155. So I've decided to stay away from Minnesota in general and just stick with the total here.
All right, there we go. Like in Minnesota and Winnipeg over the total. There are a couple props shots on goal that I actually like. I like Andrew Kopp over 2.5 shots, -140. This is a guy that's going to be playing on a second-line center role tonight for the Winnipeg Jets, centering a line with Cole Perfetti and Kyle Connor. I think you're going to see opportunity for him, and he's been able and willing to shoot the puck when he's had an opportunity. You look at 3 of the last 4 games, we've seen 3 or 4 shots on goal from Andrew Kopp for the Winnipeg Jets. So over 2.5 shots for him, definitely of interest for me in this game. There's one more that I think I was looking at. Oh, Ryan Hartman as well for the Wild is -165, some juice. But his shots on goal prop, he's had 3 shots on goal 2 previous meetings against Winnipeg this year. So sometimes I like the head-to-head history as well. And he's had some opportunities as well. He's played some of his good games. He's played a lot of good games this year for Minnesota. Don't get me wrong. Nobody knows that better than our good friend Terry Edelman, who's in the chat, Minnesota Wild super fan. Ryan Hartman has given this team a lot, but he's played very well and seemed to be a problem and making an impact and being involved in the play, getting chances when he's played the Jets this year. So that shot prop might be something to look at as well. So one for each team, Kopp and Hartman for shots on goal props here with this Wild and Jets game. Great stuff there with that. We got 2 games left on this Tuesday card. We thank everybody, of course, for joining us live on YouTube and downloading the podcast version of the Ice Guys as well. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit the like button as well. It definitely helps us out. We want to mention, of course, DraftKings are great sponsors here at the Hockey Podcast Network and the Ice Guys. The moment we've been waiting for is finally here. In honor of the Super Bowl, the big game, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56, is giving new customers 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in New York, meaning you can bet from almost a third of the country. If DraftKings Sportsbook isn't in your state yet, you can still play for DraftKings daily fantasy football contests. For Super Bowl 56, new customers can get a free shot at a $1 million top prize with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code THPN, and get 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56. Must be 21 years of age or older. Minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Download the DraftKings app, sign up for an account, use the promo code THPN. All right, moving on to one of the other marquee matchups tonight in the National Hockey League. We've got the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Edmonton Oilers. We've got Vegas slight road favorites here in this game, currently minus 120 to minus 125 road favorites, 6.5 being the total here in this game. Of course, the Edmonton Oilers have actually looked pretty solid with the new piece to the puzzle, that being Evander Kane. Obviously, he's a guy that's generated a lot of buzz, a lot of attention. Obviously, for sometimes for all the wrong reasons, but he's certainly gotten people's attention. Edmonton taking a chance on him, thinking that, in spite of the issues he's had off the ice, he is someone that is going to help this team. It's hard to deny that so far. He's fit in nicely. He's scored in multiple games for the Oilers, and they have played certainly better hockey after going through the rigors of that brutal losing streak earlier in the year, early in January. They've now turned it around and gone 5-1 in their last 6 games. We'll see if they can keep it going here against the Vegas Golden Knights, who won their last 2 games before the break, a revenge game, if you will, against Tampa Bay. They lost at home to the Lightning, and they returned the favor, beating Tampa in a shootout 3-2, and then they returned home, and no flat spot whatsoever. That or Buffalo was that bad. I don't know which one it was the night of our bet cast. I think Buffalo was pretty bad, and Craig Anderson actually was pretty bad that night as well. But Vegas putting the boots to the Buffalo Sabres in a 5-2 victory in that game. Should be fascinating. Jack Eichel is now in a contact jersey for practice for the Golden Knights. So he's full contact, means he is just days away, probably just a few games away from returning, or not returning, but making his Vegas Golden Knights debut. Boy, just going to make this Vegas team even more difficult to defend No question about that. Still banged up a little on the blue line, though, with Alec Martinez, with Nicholas Hague, and also Zach Whitecloud still missing in action. You're talking about 3 of your starting defensemen not in there for the Vegas Golden Knights. And Mike Smith is finally back and easing him back in his return from a thumb injury. Mikko Koskinen in COVID-19 protocol right now for the Edmonton Oilers. And they'll also recall Skinner, Stuart Skinner from the AHL.
The guy with the best goals against average for the Oilers.
Yeah, I know, which is hard. It's hard to believe, but yeah, the guy with the best GAA right now in Edmonton. It ain't Smith. It ain't Koskinen. It ain't the two guys that have been here now for 2-3 years. It's Stuart Skinner. Smith, 3.76 goals against average, 898 save percentage. He definitely was not playing well in the starts prior to the injury and the absence. We're talking about 4 goals allowed against Anaheim in October. Then when he came back from the last absence, he gave up 4 to St. Louis, 6 to New Jersey, 3 to Toronto. Didn't look sharp at all. That's when the Oilers were in that losing streak. Man, I don't know. Can we trust Mike Smith? This is going to be the big question here. Been out for a while. The 3 or 4 starts he's made most recently, he wasn't very particularly good in those games. So it's very difficult. I'd have to lean over here, even though, you're talking 6.5. It's obviously a number. It's seen some adjustment here in terms of the total, but kind of feels that I'd probably prefer a higher scoring game than a lower one with Mike Smith in net here, and with what these two teams are capable of. It has been an under series other than one game, so that does concern me. But I think I'll get there with a small play on the over in this game. Nothing really on the side. I kind of think there's value in this number on Edmonton here. Slight home underdog. I like the way the team is starting to play at this point in time. But boy, Mike Smith, when you saw that name as the starting goaltender, it makes you do a double take a little bit, maybe pump the brakes. Certainly lean Edmonton. Haven't gotten there yet. We'll see before puck drop, but lean Edmonton, lean over. Don't feel overly strong about the side or total in this game. Just some smaller opinions for me, Oilers and over. Andrew, what do you think? One of the games of the night here for sure, Vegas, Edmonton.
Yeah, it's a game of the night, and to be honest with you, anything I said right now would I might not be actually betting. I know we always say lean to stuff, but I kind of like the over in this game. I don't love 6.5. I like the goaltending. What we're seeing for the starting goaltenders, it'll help the over. I think that the Oilers have played some decent defense, but they're due to kind of have a track meet style of hockey game. And the Golden Knights are looking good right now. I mean, lots of shots on goal from them in each game, lots of dangerous scoring opportunities. But it's funny because we used to sound crazy when we'd say this, but it's really started to work out really well. And I love live betting Oilers games and Vegas games. Give me a 5.5 live. If I can get it, you can sign me up. Give me a 4.5 live. It's a low scoring game. If Chris, I haven't been following it, but if you're here in the live chat right now, I'd love to know the third period numbers for these two teams, because I feel like I've cashed some pretty good third period overs with both these teams as well, Ian. So look, that's kind of just off the top of my head, but I would lean towards the over if I was playing this game. That's the bet I would take. But the chances are I'll probably, and this is a late night game, I'll probably be watching this as a fan, as a hockey fan, winding down my night. And if I see a spot, I'll jump in live over.
Sometimes those are the best decisions to make, is just, especially with the totals that are 6.5. And the same goes for not only the full game total, but the first period total. You wait that 5 minutes, you'll get a better full game number on the over, and you'll also get a better first period number on the end price for that matter as well on the over. So those are definitely things to keep in mind here. And like I said, this will be, and this is not an easy first game back for Mike Smith. Because of the fact, look, you're playing a very good Vegas Golden Knights team, and a Vegas team that, someone in our chat's thinking that Smith and Theodore or Stevenson are out. I think they're in. There was some question marks about their availability, but it looks like they are all going to be suiting up tonight for the Vegas Golden Knights in this game coming out of the All-Star break, which is good news. Yeah, they've got Stevenson scheduled to be in the lineup tonight, centering Stone and Pacioretty. They've got Riley Smith on his regular right wing spot on the second line with Carlson and Marchessault. And as well, we've got Shea Theodore on the blue line on the second pair tonight for the Golden Knights. Now, things could change. Keep an eye on it before puck drop. But right now, it looks like they are all in. for the Golden Knights tonight, which is obviously they're all three very good players: Stevenson, Smith, and Theodore for sure. They're all very important to the success of the Vegas Golden Knights. All right,
it's so funny, and now just like it's so rare to release plays overnight, to bet plays overnight, or even in the morning. I mean, you want to do your research and try and figure out what plays you might like, but you can't even lock them in until sometimes after this show's over.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And Robin Lehner should be the goalie, you would think, tonight for Vegas. Not confirmed, but fully expect it to be Lehner in net. And Lehner's actually, the last 4 starts for him, it's been good. Two goals or less in 4 straight outings for Robin Lehner in net. Couple of those too, Tampa, Florida, 2 very good hockey teams. So yeah, Robin Lehner's definitely playing solid at this point in time for the Golden Knights. You just hope the All-Star break doesn't throw him out of his rhythm a little bit. All right, final game now of this Tuesday NHL card. Arizona Coyotes taking on the Vancouver Canucks. We've got Vancouver, obviously very big favorites here in this game, minus 240. The total in this one currently 5.5, pretty much across the board in this game. Not really a lot to say here. Obviously, we know Vancouver favored for a very good reason, playing one of the worst teams in the NHL, Arizona. But Arizona's been one of those teams that lately we have seen them, step up a little bit and be competitive at times. We'll see if they can keep it, bring that kind of effort once again tonight in this game. Obviously, before the break, 4-2 loss to Calgary. But in a lot of these losses lately, that's why they're tough to get involved for me personally in their games, because they're still not winning a lot. They're hanging around a lot, 2-1 to Boston, 3-1 to Buffalo, 3-2. They beat Colorado, the huge upset in a shootout right before the break, and then 4-2 Calgary. But, they were hanging around for a long time in that game as well. Vancouver, they lost their final game before the break, 4-2. So you'd expect a sense of urgency a little bit. And look, this team's obviously trying to make the playoffs and feel that even after a brutal start, that they've been a much better team since Bruce Boudreau has been there, and that if they have a good stretch of hockey out of the All-Star break, that they are capable of maybe going on a run. Neither team's been particularly good on extended rest. Vancouver 1-2, and it's been even worse for Arizona, 1-6 for them this year on extended rest. So yeah, Vancouver wins. I'm not laying this price with them. Not first game back from the All-Star break. It's definitely a pass for me, Coyotes and Canucks. Andrew, Arizona, Vancouver.
It's a pass for me here. I don't like the price on either side. I actually would lean towards the under is where I would go. Haven't gotten there and probably won't.
Yeah, you know what? The thing with Vancouver, and I hear what Rich is saying, you're right. When you look at it we've been profiting from this a lot lately with whether it's been Vejmelka or Wedgwood in net. They've been just facing a lot of rubber. They've been facing a lot of shots, both of these Arizona goalies. And I would definitely consider the over saves prop for whoever's in net tonight for Arizona, whether it's Vejmelka or Wedgwood. Sometimes Vancouver, though, has a lower shot count than some other teams. That's the one concern. But I will say this, 3 of the last 4 games before the All-Star break for the Vancouver Canucks, they had 32 and 33 shots on goal. So that's good to see. We did actually see the shot volume kind of increase for Vancouver, some of those games right before the break. So definitely gives me some hope that maybe we could look in that direction here with the goals, the saves prop, I should say, for either Vejmelka or Wedgwood, whoever is in net. It's hard to argue with that because look at these games for Arizona. They've given up 36, 37, 35, 40, and 50 shots on goal in the last 5 games before the All-Star break. So the goalies have been definitely besieged by a shooting gallery from the opposition in the last 5 games before the break. We'll see if that carries over to this game tonight, the first game after the break for the Arizona Coyotes on the West Coast against the Vancouver Canucks. Great stuff with Andrew McInnis. That's your look at the Tuesday NHL card. 7 games tonight. Looking forward to seeing how it all turns out on the ice. Thanks to everyone for joining us live on YouTube and also downloading the podcast. Let's wrap it up with best bets. Both of us cashed our best bet on yesterday's show, our first show after the All-Star break. We'll see if we can duplicate those results tonight. Andrew, we'll start with you. What do you like for best bet?
I'm going to go with the Capitals team total over 3.5. It's minus 140, but I'll be comfortable with that price tag. And I feel like they'll get some goals tonight, and getting Ovi back is huge for them. And I just think I expect a big run from the Capitals to come up here. A pretty good schedule for them as well.
All right, there we go. Washington Capitals team total over 3.5. Best bet for Andrew McInnis. My best bet's going to be New Jersey, Montreal over the total. Over 6 minus 120 is still out there at multiple spots. Two teams that are out of the playoffs, two teams that have very, very shaky defense and goaltending. It goes without saying, and I think both teams can do enough offensively to get that game up and over the total. Also, not only both teams trending over for the most part in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 games, but also series history. New Jersey, Montreal largely been over in the last few head-to-head meetings as well. So Devils, Canadiens over 6 minus 120 for my best bet for this Tuesday NHL card. And that'll wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us live on YouTube. Hit the like button on the way out if you haven't done so already. And a reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as well as Saturday and Sunday at noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Download the Ice Guys podcast whenever you can't watch the show live. For Andrew McInnis, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Tuesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on Wednesday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.